Greetings and good Wednesday morning. This 11th of May, 2022, third decade of the 21st century. If you're new to my channel, I always give you a preamble so that every video is a standalone video and you don't necessarily need to go back into my back catalog as though I would be shamelessly trying to plug my back catalog. So I give you a bit of a preamble to kind of let you know where I stand. I always say third decade of the 21st century because I always find it fascinating about what topics are being currently discussed, debated, protested, etc. by comparison to what people perceived or thought or predicted we'd be doing and talking about in the third decade of the 21st century. I started this channel for several reasons. Many of which was to provide myself with a platform to kind of like vent my frustrations so that I wasn't doing it at inappropriate times, inappropriate places, jeopardizing my social relationships, jeopardizing my professional relationships up to and including jeopardizing my work. And in doing so, before I ever posted anything to the internet, it sort of gave me the epiphany or the realization that if I think and feel a certain way about things, and I think I'm a relatively decent person, I'm sure others could debate that, but what's to stop other people who think differently from being good people, from being decent people? They just have different thoughts, different opinions, different views, different beliefs. But could they still be decent people? And it was difficult. I had made, I don't know how many videos before I finally had the courage to post one, because I always wanted to make sure that I was allowing for and giving the opportunity and credit for people to have an opposing point of view and still recognizing them as decent human beings, instead of this what I believe to be a media split, which is you're either left or right, you're either red or blue, you're either Democrat, Republican, conservative, or liberal. That the media outlets have taken a hardline stance on whatever issues may be, and because the media outlets are free from the governmental control, so they're also free to be privately owned, that the private interest groups that own these media outlets are able to cherry pick facts or frame stories to basically support the narrative and support the outcomes that they've ultimately concluded based on their beliefs, thoughts, and opinions. And it was basically dividing us, where here's a concept, here's an idea, we're going to talk about it, and you must have an opinion, and then ultimately pick a side, left or right, and so on and so forth. And I thought that was a bit disingenuous, because I feel like maybe we're semi-complex or in some ways simple, and we're not always left and right. We're not always red and blue. That maybe on various issues we're purple. I started this channel where I focused a lot on socio-political stuff and other stuff. And the intent was to try to encourage conversation, was to try to hopefully get the word out there, get into the feed of strangers, people I don't know, and attempt to create conversations, attempt to bridge gaps and open doors to communication with strangers, whether they agree or disagree. Deep down, I was hoping for people that disagreed to show that, you know what, we can be civil. We can maintain a level of decorum. We can treat each other with humanity and courtesy and still disagree. And for the most part, my channel was widely unpopular. What I would do is I would record a video, and then I would also share it on Facebook, and then I would share it on Instagram, obviously under my feeds, and that's how some people saw my videos, most of which were my friends. My original videos were very long form. I mean, I couldn't get anything in less than 20 minutes. And I originally labeled my series Let's Talk, episode 1, whatever. And once I realized that, depending on how YouTube works and whatnot, that either your video has to be recommended, or somebody has to stumble upon it, or depending on how you title the video, that's how it's going to get to people, as well as people have to share it and whatnot. And I was averaging between 0 to 1, maybe 2 views. And then I made a video shortly after the change of the calendar year. I made a bit of a resolution where I was going to start to pull away from socio-political content, because there's a lot of people doing it. There's so many people doing it. So I was going to try to get more into nerdier stuff, maybe exercise my nerd brain about stuff that I'm interested in, and see if that picks up conversation. And I made a video about Joss Whedon and Jensen Ackles. I'm not going to rehash the video, but somehow, by using those names, it reached a bigger audience than I was used to. I think to this day the video has over 1,000 views, which is not the normal for my channel based on the legacy of my channel. That attracted me some viewers that got involved in the conversation, and I started having conversations, whether one individual viewer was doing Zoom calls with me, or a handful of viewers were listening, watching, and then commenting, and then I would in turn make another video where I would read the comment out loud, and then I would respond and react. As this progressed, one video I made brought up a sensitive topic, and then it eventually devolved. In which case, either A, when it comes to certain issues, we really are that divided on the topic. B, depending on our perception of the individual's views, thoughts, and beliefs, if they conflict with ours, then what my therapist introduced me to was the third ear, which is, okay, you oppose me on this, now I'm barely going to hear anything you have to say, and my third ear is going to actively listen for those things that stimulate my aha, gotcha reflex, or aha, that whatever. She explains it way better than I do, but that's because she's got a lot of degrees and she's terribly smart, and that's why I talk to her, and that's why she helps me out. I'll be seeing her again today at 10 o'clock. And it goes both ways, because as I was reading comments, again, whether it was my third ear or my third eye, I don't know if that exists, I was picking up on things that I felt were inflammatory, antagonizing, insightful, whatever. And I can only imagine that as I would make a response video, the equal and opposite was true, that we were working both ways against each other, where we were both listening with our third ear, because we had reached a point where here's where I stand on the issue, here's where you stand on the issue. Now that I know where you stand on the issue, I'm only going to listen for those things that provide me with a rebound, provide me with that yeah but moment, and then vice versa. I was doing the same. So I basically had to shake the Etch-a-Sketch and clear the board. One of the viewers came back and left some comments, so hope you don't mind. I'm going to read those comments out loud. Until we kind of establish where we're at, I'm just going to leave the name out of it. So the response was, as part of my olive branch, my spouse and I have an orange tabby female also named Ginger. We also have a black cat named Crowley Poe, Crowley pronounced like supernatural, not Good Omens. Started watching Good Omens, not really sure, it didn't hook me. It didn't have, I think I got maybe to the second episode with my wife, and both of us were just kind of like, it just wasn't getting us. I apologize if I ever came off harshly. Boundaries are good. I've had to put in boundaries with some of my family members. Complex and mixed array of emotions to respond to this. I don't think anybody should apologize for who they are and how they feel. I understand the desire to maybe apologize for one's conduct if perhaps we react and respond in the heat of the moment when our emotions are heightened. Which is part of why I did this reset, because for me, if I waited until my mind was a bit more clear and my heart rate was lowered, I was taking between 1 to 2 weeks off in between videos, and I was also feeling the temptation. I was also feeling that urge where I want to keep the viewers. I want to keep the conversation going, even at risk to myself, if it was in any way, shape, or form harmful to myself. And I try to watch my words carefully as far as the weight of the word and how and the impact it sends. Like if I use words that may be technically and grammatically correct, does it convey a heavier thought? Does it send a heavier message? It wasn't like I was so profoundly distraught and I was so just overcome with emotions. It was if I felt agitated, if I felt frustrated, if I felt angered, if I felt like I wasn't being heard. In that way, I was potentially adversely affected, but ordinarily I have the remainder of my life where I'm unaffected. But then it also reached a fever pitch where certain comments were just, man, I couldn't let it go. I could not let it go. The emotions were so intense that I had to do something. I had to respond. On that note, the only thing I can say is something I've tried to do, and I'm not saying I'm an expert at it, is I've tried to step away, take a deep breath, tried to ascertain the highest level of intent, not the lowest level of intent. I've tried to determine whether or not the person is purposely trying to be hurtful, harmful, antagonizing, insightful, or whether they're just expressing their opinion. And I've tried to do all that before I respond emotionally, before I respond in a manner where my rational brain is not at the forefront. I appreciate this video more than you know. I look forward to the newer content. I have an aunt who cosplayed as Boba Fett on many occasions, and her helmet is awesome. I hope you have fun with the cosplay. I'll tell you what, I've had the hardest time getting it going because the short or long version is this. I bought an older home in Carolina, and older homes back in the day were not built with garages. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a southern thing. I don't know if it's a North Carolina thing. I really don't know, but my house was built in '65, and it did not come with a garage. So, for all intents and purposes, we're kind of living like white trash or hillbillies, where since we don't really have place to put, we have plenty of room to put things, but they're in the open. It's like, hey, there's that. Hey, there's that. Where most people they'll shove things away in like a closet or a garage. I don't have that. So the original owner had built what was essentially a workshop. It has a garage door on it, but it's not a garage. And I've been trying to renovate that. But as I pull stuff out to either A, do physical labor work, perform the renovation, make it ready for my cosplay workshop, I have to find places to put everything I take out. So that's been the challenge as of lately. I also intend to make a studio and see if I can maybe go to the local community college and take some courses on production. I've noticed a lot of other people on YouTube when they talk about like Supernatural or Firefly or Smallville or anything else I'm into, they'll actually have videos or they'll have like little excerpts in video form that they talk over. So you can't see the person talking, but you can see the videos. And I think that could probably be a much better scenario than being in the back den of my house with the 1970s wood paneling and the 1970s curtains that we just haven't replaced yet. So, and then I haven't really kept up with Smallville. Rewatching more recently, I'm more familiar with the Allison Mack issues with Nexium due to all of the recent documentaries as well as listening to India Oxenberg's book. Yeah, that Nexium thing is crazy. Um, I don't I don't really know what opinion I should have when it comes to Allison Mack, because at the risk of taking the easy way out, that would mean I'd have to know Allison Mack on a very intimate level, and I would have to know consciously and rationally what her involvement was, or is it possible that she had reached a point where, I forget the guy's name, but the founder of Nexium, if he had such a psychological, emotional hold over her that she couldn't see the forest through the trees. She couldn't see what she was doing. She couldn't interpret the consequences of her actions. Which also brings me to the point where I've been looking, I've been looking for fan pages. I've been looking for fan pages on Facebook, and a lot of them have clear-cut rules. You can talk about Chloe, you can't talk about Allison. And I'm like, well, in some circumstances, boundaries are good, and sometimes they need to be a bit flexible, or you need to cast a wider net. You need to, allow the horse some room to roam, right? If you understand my meaning. I got the impression of being caged in, like the Gestapo. And then, of course, as you read further, if they have laws or rules or whatnot, some of the laws and rules, I agree with. Some of them I don't. And knowing my personality, I feel as though I would run the risk of pushing a boundary, and then I'd have to deal with the consequences, and then I'd get all frustrated. And I got to tell you, my knee-jerk reaction is quite volatile. I think maybe that's why the Marine Corps was such a good fit for me, because one of the things I've been struggling with, and one of the things I've been seeking therapy for, and I've been working on, not just as a husband and a father, but as a civilian, is, depending on the level of frustration, anger, etc., my initial knee-jerk reaction is scorched earth. Frickin' Clausewitz. Total frickin' war. Like, build the family tree, cut it down limb by limb, grind the stump, and completely obliterate any existence of DNA. That was, and on very, very rare occasions, is my knee-jerk response. So, knowing who I am, I've been avoiding those sites. I don't know. Let me see. I got to reread the comment. I got CRS. Can't remember shit. I haven't really kept up with Smallville. Rewatching more recently. Okay. So, because of Tom Welling, John Glover, Erica Durance, and Michael Rosenbaum showing up at GalaxyCon, we're rewatching Smallville, and we're plowing through it. I want to say we're averaging a season a week. And when the kids were on spring break, I think we maybe sped up the process. But we're on season 9 now, and I think we're very close to being halfway through it. At this point, and I apologize, this will probably be repetitive if I start doing Smallville videos. At this point, Smallville is almost completely out of the picture, if not utterly out of the picture. They use the Kent farm very rarely. They use the Luthor mansion in Smallville very rarely. They use the Talon in Smallville very rarely. It's almost distinctly gone 100% Metropolis, which I personally don't know if anybody's ever tried that, keeping the same show but changing the name. But they opted against it. Season 9 was 2009 to 2000, so fall of 2009 to spring of 2010. As of right now, from seasons 1 to seasons 9, in my wife and I's opinion, it holds up. the cinematography still looks fresh. It still looks current. It still looks modern. Not sure what the Blu-rays would do. Uh, every once in a while, there's something that will kind of throw you back, like whenever they bring out a cell phone from 2001 to 2009, which is where I'm at right now in the season. You can see a small progression in the technology. Whenever they show computers, you can see that small progression. Um, on rare occasions, when you see the technology, you can see the lack of HDMI. You can see the VGA imports. You can see from tube monitors to flat screen monitors. You can the flat screen televisions, and every once in a while you'll see a tube television. So, with rare exception, for the most part, it holds up. You don't necessarily feel like it's such a throwback. And the best way I can explain it is, if you were ever a fan of Buffy or Angel, I think, at least when it comes to cinematography, I think you can see a clear delineation between going from one form or brand of cinematography to another form or brand of cinematography in the perceived quality. And I don't know if that's going from the physical videotape to a more digital platform, but you can definitely see some changes in the late 90s Buffy and Angel until the early 2000s Buffy and Angel. And then, of course, Smallville, in my opinion, must have been all digital with slight improvements, because the cinematography holds up where you don't feel like you're watching something that started over 20 years ago. I mean, Smallville debuted in October of 2001, shortly after the events of 9/11. I'll be honest, for the purpose of trying to keep some sort of polite decorum and not dropping any names, I don't know, depending on where you're at in your own headspace, and like right now, where you're at in your own headspace now, and how you're feeling about certain topics and issues. I don't know how you'll feel about Smallville. For me, one of the reasons my wife and I have been going back and watching older stuff before, say, a certain time frame is, whether we're old-fashioned, whether we're whatever the case may be, certain social issues that we don't really agree with or care about that much, we don't want it shoved down our throat. I guess the equivalent would be if religion became really, really popular and every show was trying to address some form of religion, and every modern day show was trying to address some form of religion and really push that religious agenda. So with modern shows pushing what we believe to be agendas, we've been going back to watching older shows where we feel it was more story driven, more plot driven, less social issue driven, while at the same time trying to address, I want to, at the risk of offending, which I don't want to do, that's not my intent, common everyday issues, like in the beginning when it was seasons 1 through 4, when Clark was in high school, trying to address issues specific to what somebody might face in high school, regardless of having superpowers. And then when you, of course, add the dynamic of superpowers and, that childhood, adolescence, there was a little bit of life imitating art, or more importantly, art imitating life. And then as the seasons progress, there's certain occasions in which either art is imitating life or life is imitating art. And in the realm of socio-political content, I'll try to address that as softly as I can without trying to really pour gas on a fire. But to me, it holds up, and it's so fun because in many, many ways it takes me back, both positively and negatively. And I've already gone over the 20-minute mark, and I sincerely apologize for anybody who has a limited attention span. When Smallville started in October of 2001, I had just checked into the Mountain Warfare Training Center in Pickle Meadows slash Bridgeport, California. It was a very small, isolated duty station. Uh, every commodity like grocery stores and whatnot was at least an hour to 90 minutes away. I was new. I didn't know anybody. My social life took a bit of a hit. Uh, Smallville helped fill that void. Not to mention, we had just had 9/11, and I was in the military at the time, and I was like, well, what's going to happen? What are we going to do? You know, what's the sit rep? And Smallville, among many other shows, I was very much into wrestling at that time. So between wrestling and Smallville and maybe a few other shows, they were a great distraction. It was a great way to tune out. Um, let's see, from '01 to '02, '02 to '03, '03 to '04. So we got all the way through season 3. Now, granted, I missed some of it because I think '01 to '02, '02 to '03. So I missed the last half of season 2 for the invasion of Iraq. I came home from that and I was able to catch all of season 3 for the most part. And I mean, with rare exception, I don't know if I had a DVR. I can't remember if I had a DVR or not. Season 4 was either starting or had started while my new bride and I were PCSing from Bridgeport, California to Jacksonville, North Carolina, Camp Lejeune. If I recall, season 4, if my wife didn't record it on a DVD recorder, she may have saved it on a DVR, or both, or we bought season 4 on DVD and watched it that way. Because I was deployed in January of '05 for 7 months to the Fallujah area, and then basically the same thing in 2000. So season 5 started in 2005, ended in 2006. I may have caught the beginning of it, but again, whether she DVR'd it, recorded it, I went to Ramadi, and Smallville, my wrestling, it was all a great distraction. So when I would get my care package and I would watch the DVDs my wife would send me, it was a great way to feel like I was back home. It was a great way to distract myself from being in Ramadi or Fallujah at the time. And then season 6 was from '06 to '07. At that point, we were pregnant with our second child, the one, my son Logan, who would have all the medical issues. So I remember season 6 as the year we got pregnant with Logan. And when season 6 ended, we had Logan. I ended up not going on a deployment, and then season 7 would start. During that deployment I didn't go on, season 7 would end, and during that time frame we almost lost him for the first time, which is when they came to the conclusion he had to have a transplant. So season 7 ended in the spring/summer of '08. Long story short, we would end up getting orders to Columbus, Ohio, so that our son could get relocated to, or transferred to, Cincinnati Children's, where he could get a transplant. Season 8 started in the fall of '08, and we were in Columbus, Ohio. So from season 8, 9, and 10, we were in Columbus, Ohio. I would also subsequently deploy with the reserve unit I was attached to Afghanistan. And I had a very awkward and tumultuous tour in Columbus. It started off good, and then, to be completely honest, it ended quite awkwardly. And then we would leave. We would both end up leaving Columbus separately due to the complications and uniqueness of my son's condition and protocols at Cincinnati Children's. I would come to Camp Lejeune in March of 2012 and my wife would go to Chicago. Uh, the thought back then was that I was going to finish my last 3 years in Camp Lejeune and then move back to Chicago. Um, when I got back here, I rewatched Smallville, picked up on a few things I had not picked up on previously watching it, and then that was it. I hadn't watched it since. So we're rewatching it, and in some cases, we're catching stuff we haven't seen. We're catching things that we didn't catch before. We're getting a different impression. I don't know if we're seeing it differently. I'm a year older than Tom Welling, so I was still in my 30s. I turned 40 in 16. It ended in 11 after my 30. Well, I turned 30 in 06. So that's add 5. Okay. So I was 35 when Smallville ended. Rewatched it when I was just shy of 36, possibly even 36, and then haven't watched it since. So I hadn't watched it in about 10 years, and we've been rewatching it, and we've been catching things that we didn't catch before. We've been getting different impressions that we didn't get before. We're being surprisingly pleasantly surprised by things that we just don't remember or didn't catch before. And hopefully, if you watched it before, you'll do the same. In spite of what Allison Mack was caught up in with Nexium, it's great. And hopefully I can expand upon that. I know I've already gone over 30 minutes, but I really enjoyed it. And hopefully you'll find the same level of enjoyment, even if it doesn't necessarily address certain issues that may be very near and dear to your heart. Maybe the story as a standalone is good enough for you to enjoy. As far as some of the issues they try to address. So let me know what you think. If you've been recently rewatching it, please let me know what you think, and then maybe we can create this little Smallville conversation. And thank you for getting involved. You're awesome. Anybody else who watches this, gets involved, leaves comments, wants to talk about Smallville, you're awesome too.